Good lunch, everyone.
Yes, very nice, thank you.
Awesome. Right. We're going to get cracked on with the perfect one-to-one. We've handed out some communication documents or a questionnaire that we want you to go through. Not yet. There's some short, so the girls have just got to get some copies of them. So those will get handed out pretty soon. Sorted?
No.
All right, then we'll have to share. Is it no one there?
There's a queue for check-in, but I'm
Right.
just,
Okay,
I'm just going to go make
we're a good 15-20 minutes away, so
Yeah, it's fine,
yeah,
I'll
you do
sort
it.
it.
Cool. Alright, so this is all about the perfect one-to-one, and Adele's going to go, she's gone through it quite in some depth already, but going to go a little bit more detail. So, warm round of applause, everyone.
But yeah, one-to-ones, we've already touched, I think, over the course of the last couple of days on one-to-ones and different aspects of one-to-ones. What is a one-to-one? It provides a dedicated space and time for an open-ended and anticipated conversation between a manager and an employee. The one-to-one meeting is a place for coaching, mentorship, giving context, or even venting. When I spoke to you earlier on about morning huddles and things like that, don't allow it to be a venting session. You should never do that. And what you'll find is, unfortunately, staff can develop into a bit of a pack of wolves if you let them as well. So you might have had this experience already. They will gang up on you a little bit. So you'll have the conversation, but I don't really like what this new procedure is, and it's rubbish, and I don't know why we have to do it. Yeah, I agree. Well, if you say you agree and I say I'll agree, then it'll be really difficult. Nonsense. So you do have to use this type of environment, because what you find is actually they're much more receptive to that manager-staff mentality, whereas rather than a group of people descending on you. Sometimes there's actually a place for that, because I actually really enjoy that sometimes, but only when I've been doing the job a long time and I'm able to see how best to handle this. And I have, in the past, kind of said, oh, it's really interesting, Kaylee, because in your last one-to-one, discussed how positive you felt about your new procedures or whatever it is. Yeah, and then everybody kind of looks, oh, we've broken that up. So it can be done, and every now and again there's a place for it, but if we try to keep venting or anything negative like that in the confines of your one-to-one. Now, in terms of what your one-to-one looks like, there's different bits of prescribed kind of templates and things like that. A lot of the managers will use a template whereby at the top of the page they'll have the targets. So within that can be set up, and you can use that template again and again and again and again. So again, what we're looking at is creating documents that you can use over and over again and simplifying things for you moving forward. What they'll have at the very top is their target, because regardless of attitudes and willingness and things like that, at the end of the day, we've spoke about, if somebody is performing and somebody is giving you the results, you're happy to work on the other stuff unless it's really, really causing you problems. Very rarely do you find, though, that the other stuff doesn't cause you problems in reflection to your performance. I think this morning's example was one of the only ones I've seen. Normally it will have an impact. If it not straight away, then it definitely will in future. Sometimes the impact's not on that individual's performance, but it's on other people's performance, which is really unfair. So we'll start with the figures. So at the top, these guys will have things like, if they're a portfolio manager, they'll have arrears and they'll have a target around what they expect the arrears to be reduced by. You might want to make that a percentage, or you might want to make it a figure. Your arrears today is £5,000, I wanted to come down by £1,000, whatever that is. Or you might want to make it percentages. They'll have things like how many applications they're expected to take. They'll have things like how many move-ins we expect them to do. They'll have how many mid-term inspections they're going to organise. And it's basically all finance-driven, because we'll get an income from mid-term inspections, we'll get an income from renewals. So all of your residual income will be in there, as well as arrears and things like that. Now, when setting targets, I'm a big believer in agreeing the targets. Don't get me wrong, I know what I want when I walk into it, but I allow them, and the benefit of doing this is, as Tony would probably tell you, she didn't do it on her first one-to-one, and they agreed to give her what she asked for. What's the downside to giving somebody a target? You giving them it.
If they fail, they can blame you.
Yes, absolutely. They can say things like, it was unreasonable. I didn't think I was going to achieve it. You didn't ask us, you give us a target. I was never going to hit it. What's the other downside?
It's not their figure,
Mhm.
so they don't have any ownership over it. They,
Yeah.
you know,
Could be demotivational.
Yeah, definitely. One of the other things is to consider, and you'll be amazed at how often this happens, their own target will be higher than your target. And I say that over and over and over again. And don't get me wrong, if they've never set their own targets before, they can be overzealous. And I think the key to that is, I've sat with branch managers before and said, right, okay, what are you going to give us in listings this month? And in my head, I'm thinking, I'll be happy with 15 listings. 25. Fantastic. Where are we getting that figure from? I just think I can smash it this month. Right, well, you usually list about 12, 13, in a good month 17. How are we getting to 25? Well, I've got a few in pipeline already because I did so many last month and I know that they're definitely going to come off this month. Fantastic. And I'm going to do loads more prospecting. Fantastic. So is 25 fair? I tell you what, actually, I'm going to do 20. I still had 15 in my head. Yeah, okay, we're happy with 20 and we're going to do these things to get 20. Yeah, I'm happy with 20. Now, I had 15 in my head. The likelihood is she might hit one of her highest performances that she's had previously and hit 17. I'm still happy. And what she does is take absolute ownership of that. The only thing you've got to be careful of is by allowing them to do that, they can be a victim of kind of their own energies, if you like, and the next month they might try and pull it right back. The thing is though, when you give targets, what you should be doing is you should be giving realistic targets. We talked about demotivating factors like giving unrealistic targets. It doesn't serve a purpose. Your target should be based on the trends. It should be based on you know, what's happening to us, what time of the year it is, you know, we know all of those kind of things. It should be based to some degree on previous performance, but it should always be with the mindset of, we want you to, from our point of view, we want you to be better. So if you're constantly giving us 15, why are we not striving for 17? How do we get that extra 2? Talk to us about how we get there. So I'm a strong advocate of setting targets with people, not giving them targets, setting them with them. The benefit is, go on.
So if you have two people doing the same job, what if one gives you a higher target than the other?
We have that all the time, and it's absolutely fine.
Oh, is
as
it?
long as, remember, it's their target that they've set themselves. So what happens is, they'll bounce off each other off the back of that and go, what was your target? 8. Mine was only 5. What did you set yourself 5 for? I don't know, I thought I could do 5. What have you set yourself 8 for? Well, I think I can do it. And all of a sudden, you get a little bit of competition. They're not going to be upset because you didn't set the target, they set themselves. How can they possibly be upset with you? You didn't set the target, they did. But what it also does is, I know we had this, Tony was a really good example of this actually in our last one. We agreed what her targets was for branch. She had 2 sales negs doing the same job, but vendors split down the middle. The first person that she went into our one-to-one with, nerves had kicked in, you know, I was sat watching her, which I know is not ideal, and she wanted to do a really good job, and she started with reviewing the performance from the previous month, and then, right, okay, we're going to look at your targets for this month. And before she knew it, it had kind of come out her mouth, and I totally felt it for her, because it happens, and she'd set the targets, and I think she knew, and she kind of looked at me and said, paused up there. Not the end of the world, it's fine. You've still just given the targets that actually I was going to ask you to give. She was fortunate at that point though that the lady she was giving the targets to is very, very good. She's got no concerns about her performance. This is a lady who, if she was given a wrong target or something that she felt was unfair, I should say, should have voiced it. But like, also she wouldn't have tried to make life difficult by just challenging it for the sake of challenging it. The next person she was due to have in would have absolutely done that, and there's a pain in the backside. Or certainly was in the process of being, and handed our notice in yesterday, which is fantastic. That's what good performance management does. So what we saw there was, though, I said, right, that was brilliant, love that, but what did you miss? I know. And I said, I can guarantee you, watch what will happen with the next person. If you don't give targets, I guarantee you the target she sets will either be equal to what you're looking for, or they'll exceed what you're looking for. Especially because I'm in the room, to be fair, so they'll want to try, and I'm brilliant at everything. And I was praying, if I'm honest, that worked, because there's always a chance you'll get egg on your face and something will go against trend. Actually, she talked about target. This person doubled everything that we expected her to do. What Tony did voice is, are you sure you want to set yourself that target to seem a little bit high? Yeah, I'm going to do that because I've only been doing an hour's prospecting a day, but I think I've got capacity to do 2 hours. I'm thinking straight away, you've just signed your own flipping performance management out here, to be fair, because you know, we were already had concerns around the performance, but actually by doing that, there's not a chance you're going to hit that. And we did try to nurture that, don't get me wrong, with, are you sure that seems a little bit high? No, I can absolutely smash this. So what you'll find is, when people do that, they'll usually give you more than what you're asking them to give, and they'll buy into that, and they're more likely to work towards that. I don't know what it is, not every staff member does it, but definitely a good percentage of staff members do it. If you set a target, they'll allow themselves a bit of a contingency. Oh, my target's 5. If I get 4, I'll be happy. Why? You know, my partner does it with times. I'm often late. So he'll tell me an earlier time, knowing that I'll give myself a contingency of being half an hour late. So he manages me by telling us I need to be there half an hour early. It's a good way of I believe that you should always set targets with somebody. When you asked earlier about time frames, I would ask them to give you a time frame. Whenever I'm asking somebody to do something, I'll always say, brilliant, and how long will that take you? Generally, they'll try and say it's going to take them less. You get the odd conservative person who'll try and take more. If they're taking more, you'll know I can wait a week for that. If they say, oh, I can have it here in 2 days, fantastic, you've got a bit of a contingency to play with if they didn't quite hit that because you were willing to wait a week. Same with targets. She said she's going to double it. Actually, if she does half of what she said she's going to do, as a branch, I've still met target, but I'm not going to be hit with, you give us that target, it was impossible to me. I'm not going to be met with just falling short of the target because I've allowed myself a contingency if I'm just a little bit away. Often we hear things like, well, I wasn't far off my target. The target's your target. Well, it doesn't matter if you weren't far off it, you didn't hit it. So I believe I'm a strong advocate of allowing people to set targets with you and also allowing them some time scales. Again, with time scales, if somebody says to you, you want it in a week, and they say, give us a fortnight, ooh, I'm going to struggle with a fortnight. Tell us what's going to prevent you from doing it any sooner. I've just got a lot on at the minute. Right, okay then, so what could we possibly move about? No, actually I'm alright, I can do it in a week. Is a week alright? Yeah, that's what I was wanting. But it's still commitment from them at that point. So at the top of your one-to-one, I would recommend it's performance related. Everything should be performance related, and start with your figures. You're doing a monthly one-to-one, so there's no reason your one-to-one starts with, let's look at your performance and your measurable performance. You said you were going to do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You've done 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well done. That's where we start. The next part of the one-to-one for me is the next part of the one-to-one for me is reviewing each of those. So if we've got arrears as the first box and they've hit the target for arrears, it's a nice simple conversation. The next part of the review is, okay, you hit your target for arrears, I'm chuffed to bits. What did you do to hit your target? Well, it was really good because I started a new tact and I've started to do letters to guarantors at this stage, and that seems to be working really well. All right, okay, what do we say we're going to do in the process? The process says this, but actually, I had a little go at this, Adele, I'm getting a really good effect. Nothing wrong with looking at that point, your staff are the best people to steer your processes. I think we talked about this earlier on today, I often ask staff to write processes. I often ask staff to pull a process apart. What are the benefits of asking your staff to write a process or a procedure? Buy-in.
You're also doing it day to day, so.
Yeah, 100%. Nobody best placed to do that than them. What they're not going to do is complain about the new process. You did it. So you know, what we're looking to do is, I call it, not passing the buck, empowering people. You empower people to make decisions. They're not expecting you to empower them because it's your business. You're the one in power, but actually I'm going to empower you to pick your own targets. I know what your targets need to be, and I'll steer them. But for all intents and purposes, you've been part of that. I'm going to empower you to write the procedures for the company. I can guarantee about 20% of the procedures within our company have been written by a staff member. The accompanied viewers had a go of that. How can I say what that looks like? For me, you know, how long does it take when you walk into a property to start preparing and picking up the things I wouldn't have thought about? Delhi not allowing us much time for viewings. Do you know that sometimes I have to go in and sack a load of post? Or should we have something in the procedure where we have black sacks in the car so that we can sack the post and label it up? Oh, good point. I didn't think of that. And when you empower people, you get so much from them. When we talk about that self-actualisation, there's nothing better than giving somebody some responsibility. If you confine people with actions, you'll not get as much from them. You empower people to talk to you about what results they want, and then you talk to them about what actions they're going to do to give you those results. It's important you know what results you want, but you should be empowering your people all of the time. So, go through arrears at this point. You've hit your target, fantastic. What did you do? I did this. Okay, can we have a little look at that procedure then? And would you mind just kind of, you know, looking to see where we could slot that in and talk to us about what you did? Obviously, you're going to make sure that whatever they're doing is within the confines of the law and we're not harassing people. But beyond that, brilliant. If that worked for you, fantastic. Let's roll it out. You'll be amazed at how wonderful somebody feels off the back of you empowering them to do something like that. And do you mind actually doing a little bit of training with everybody as to how you got that result? Is that all right? Absolutely, yeah, I think it's fantastic. And there's your employee of the month at the end of the month because you stepped out of your comfort zone. What ripple effect do you think that has within your business?
Everyone's going to own a piece of the action.
Absolutely. Empowering people, seeing how people react off being empowered and seeing the ripple effect of that is absolutely fantastic. To the point that I often would walk and then, yeah, everything's cool, it's fine. So do try to think about doing that when you're doing your one-to-ones. Think about ways in which you could say, and I think our gut reaction is to go, yeah, I'll do that. You know, I've heard in one-to-ones previously where Tony said, yeah, that's a good idea. We might look at doing that. Let me look into it. And I say to her afterwards, you've just given yourself a job to do. Well, what do you mean? She was clearly telling you an idea that she'd had, and you went, yeah, I'll look into it. Why do you want to look into it? Should I not be? Why? What you should have said is, fantastic idea. Will you go away and look into it and give us a bit of a proposal? How much would that cost us? What? I can do that. Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. Why would you not want to get more out of people? Why would you not want to inspire them, elevate them, empower them? It'll give you so much reward back, and it'll give your staff so much more productivity.
What about if you do that, and then when you're having your next one-to-one, they've done that, but they haven't done anything else of what they were supposed to be doing?
So, what you do need to be saying at the point you say, could you run away with that and do that? What you do need to be saying is, can you do that? Is that going to cause you any problems in terms of the other targets that we've set?
Fine.
Or I might only be able to do an hour's prospecting a day, or whatever that looks like. Or do you mind if I come off the phones for an hour just to be able to kind of bury myself away? You then understand whether or not you can accept that. But you're absolutely right, very good point. Make sure that they understand their jobs first and foremost. This is something that they've either got to agree that they can do. You'll find that there's a real willingness because they'll feel empowered by it. They'll want you to allow them to do it again. By not doing their work, they'll understand the implications of it is, I can't really, empower you and let you run off with that. So, it does work out.
What I really wanted to be doing is get your own time.
Yeah. And what you'll find
you're home
is...
watching football.
Yeah, and what you'll find is often they will do that. So you get some real good feedback, I think, from that, and some nice wins with your staff. So in terms of the arrears, brilliant, okay then, that's one box ticked. You didn't get as many applications, you fell short on one of your applications. Tell us why you think that is. Well, I don't know, I've smashed this though, and I haven't, right, okay, I understand that, and we're going to move on to that, I'm chuffed to bits, but why didn't you? It's just been a bit more quiet, right, okay. But Sophie, who manages the same size portfolio, she took more applications on hers. Right, okay, yeah. Right, okay, so what could you be doing that Sophie's doing? Sophie, I guess, spends a bit more time she'll actually give the company viewer a second set of keys, and she'll look at what other properties she's got, so she's getting people in more doors. Right, is that something that you could do? Yeah, I guess so. Brilliant. Is that something you're going to do? Yeah. What can I expect to happen off the back of that? I'm going to hit target. Fantastic. So you'll go through each step of the way, and all you're doing is you've got your figures in terms of your performance. You're either celebrating it, asking them to confirm what they did to get that good performance, or you're talking about the actions that they need to change to get a different type of outcome. After that, what you need to be thinking about doing is you'd have an extra column, so you've got target, actual, new target. All right, or you might want to create a new document and have your new target at the top of it. Just depends how you want to work it. Your new target is for the following month. So what are we going to achieve the following month? The flow of that works really well because we've looked at your performance, we've measured it, we've given feedback. It's also told us that actually if they've been low in a certain area, rather than carry that on and go, oh well, we'll set your target low for that because you didn't do many renewals last month. No, we've talked about the actions that you're going to do, which will mean the outcome will be this. So it makes your new target setting much, much easier. So off the back of that, you'll have target, target review, new targets. What you'll find is you'll bring in things like your competencies throughout your one-to-one based on your performance. So all the things we've talked about previously, where you've got happy face, sad face, and you say, I feel like, you'll be able to support with your findings. Okay, and that's during your one-to-one is when you really get into the nitty-gritty of that. I feel like, right, okay, I don't think I've had an attitude change. Right, okay, well on this date and this time, this is what I heard with a colleague. It could be that they've been abrupt with another colleague. The colleague hasn't complained about it, but they were definitely abrupt, and you definitely picked up on it, and that colleague will have gone home and not felt great about themselves. On this date and time, I heard you do this. And what you'll tend to find is when you start giving them the evidence, they won't be able to wiggle out of it and just give you, no, that's not right. You'll tend to get the bottom of it. It might be that there's a personal issue at home. It might be that they've got a bit of conflict with another member of staff. It might be actually that they've got something within them because you said you were going to do something. It might be sometimes we're met with, we don't see big changes, but we might have committed to do something, whether it be training and development with them, whether it be that we're going to have an award system or we're going to roll out a bonus, and we haven't done it. And they haven't said anything, because some people don't like that, but what you'll do is you'll see a change in their behaviour, and it might be that they're just not as pleasant as they would be normally. It might be they're a bit shorter, whatever it is. It might be they're a bit more, normally it could be something as simple as you allow them an hour for lunch, but they don't normally take it. They normally eat a sandwich at the desk and keep going, but all of a sudden I'm taking exactly my hour, I'm going out at 12 and coming back at 1. And it could be just little changes that you notice that you can kind of say, what's going on? I get the feeling of this. And that's your opportunity, because sometimes within your one-to-one, you haven't managed them the way you should have done, and there is something that you need to change, and your job is to pull that out of them. Your job is to understand that so you can make a change, and sometimes the change has to come from you. Yeah, okay, I didn't do that, I'm going to acknowledge that. In future, can I ask one thing? Let's not get in a strop about it, let's not stomp about, let's not, let's just talk to each other, because actually, when you've told us today what I haven't been doing, what response have you got? A really good one, and you'll always get a really good one. So let's make sure that if I've got something to get off my chest, I'm going to get it off my chest. Let's agree you'll do exactly the same with me. So from a one-to-one structure, it's up to you how you do that. Okay, some people like to do a review around figures and then a one-to-one around attitude. I think they generally go hand in hand. So for me personally, I like to do them as one encompassing document, one encompassing conversation. I also don't like having meetings for meeting's sake. So to me, let's get it all wrapped up in one go. Think about if customer service is important to you. One of the key indicators I had at the top was your customer service. So I had a star rating. I expect a 5-star service from every single member of staff. Kaylee, the girl I talked to you about previously, I would say she was delivering as a 2-star. I didn't ask her to deliver as a 5-star within a month. I understood we had work to do. I was realistic with the target. I said, Kaylee, if you can start delivering me consistently a 3-star, at the end I'm going to be happy. Then we're going to work on the little things that you're going to do to make yourself a 4-star. And within 3 months I'm going to have you operating consistently at a 5-star service. Can I have that commitment from you? Yeah, okay. It's going to take a bit of work, but we're going to get there. So if customer service is important to you, put it up there. Think about how you're going to measure it. Think about the tools that you're going to use to measure it. So recorded calls, it could be that you're just listening in. I think sometimes it's nice for people not to know you're listening in. If they know you're listening in, they'll give you the best possible performance. You don't really want somebody to act, you want to see them in the cold light of day. So if you can, you know, what will happen is if they make some calls and they're not as good a calls as you want and you don't pull them up on it, they'll assume you're not that bothered or you're ignoring it. In those instances, always make sure you detail that. So actually you can say, on a few occasions we talked about having a really good close to a conversation. I didn't say you do it, I do sometimes. Yeah, you do it sometimes, but I want you to do it every time. So we're going to get to that stage, yeah? Yeah, okay. Because if we don't, Kaylee, we are going to go through capability. And I know you don't want to go there, and I definitely don't want to go there. And I know we don't have to, because I've seen you do it. I just need to see you do it consistently. Is there anything stopping you from doing it consistently? And I once was met with, off the back of that charter, we, at the time I managed a branch in Seaham, and when we rolled out the charter, my couple of staff members hated it. And we're like, that's ridiculous. It's like, nobody speaks like that. Why are we getting all Americanised? I don't like it. It's ridiculous. And you know, Adele, you just don't always have time. This is where the kind of ganged up on us a little bit, if you like. And I worked Saturdays, so we had a rota. So we did 1 and 4 Saturdays each. And at the time, one of the things that they hit us with is, you can't always do that. You can't always have that nice fluffy conversation and where you're asking these lovely questions, and one of the things that we said is summarise the conversation. So if somebody's asked you to do something, summarise it so you've got a good understanding of the conversation. So Mr. Landlord, you haven't gotten statements for the last 2 months. I'm going to come off the phone, I'm going to email you those. I'm going to do that within this time frame. Is that okay with you? Yes, absolutely. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to do this. Is there anything else we need to cover off today, Mr. Landlord? No, that's everything. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Look forward to speaking to you again at this point in time. Yeah? Really? I mean, you haven't got time to do that. Take Saturdays, for instance, and we're on our own. Right, okay, well, what's the downside of that? Well, if I had somebody in the office and they were waiting to see us and I was having that type of conversation, they're going to get impatient. And I said, no, I beg to differ, because I did exactly the same on Saturday. Somebody walked in the office, and I was actually taking a complaint at the time, and I handled it really, really well. And I was probably on the phone about 7 minutes whilst that person was sit. I'd give them a nod and kind of let them know I knew they were there, and I'll not be very long, and I'd give them a smile and a bit of a nurture, if you like. And then I continued on the phone call. It was obviously a very difficult phone call. I know you couldn't hear both sides. You could hear from my reaction. You could hear how I handled it. And what happened is, off the back of that, I came off the phone. It was a new landlord coming in to give us a property. He was going to ask us to come out and value his property, and he'd give us the keys while he was in. He saw the way I'd handled it, he saw how I'd handled it well, and he thought, that sounds good, that's an agent for me. He gave us the keys, I went out and valued it, and I listed it, and that was a true story. And what I said is, somebody will wait, and actually, if you're handling it really, really well, all that's going to do is create a bit of a fan. God, she sounds good. If I know I'm going to get that type of service, that's fantastic. And the other thing to remember is that what I imagine would have happened if Lee had been in that day, she'd have done something like this. Not joking. Yeah, okay, I'll get back to you. And because the person doesn't feel valued, she won't get off the phone very quickly, no quicker, because actually what do we do if we think someone's not listening? We reiterate and we go on. Well, actually, if you close it down, totally understand where you're coming from, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. This is what I'm going to do next. You'll wrap that conversation up quicker. But what you probably would have done worse than that is it looked at the people who were waiting. He's a new landlord. He could be that person on the phone while you're going. So just quashed it. So if customer service is important to you, which I imagine it is for everybody, and if it isn't, it should be, then put it in there. If you don't have a problem with it and actually everybody's on the same page, you know, you can walk out the office and everybody deliver the service that you're looking for, don't put it in there. Don't put something in there if it doesn't need to be measured. If you've got it nailed, fine, leave it out. If it's something that is constantly a work in progress, which I believe customer service usually is, then put it in there, yeah? So everything within your document, review stages, and because of off the back of that, you'll come across some of your competencies and things like that that'll allow you to cross those off also. It takes the guesswork out of management as well. If we don't have them, we'll go, I think that's working. Yeah, I think she's going to do really well. We shouldn't have I thinks. If we have one-to-ones and we have structure, we won't ever have a think, because we'll know if it's working. What is the key to an effective one-to-one? There's a few, but what's one of the key things? Good communication, fantastic. What I'm going to do is, you've all got a questionnaire. No, you haven't, not yet. Right, well, we're going to go through this next bit anyway before you get it. Has any of you done like a bit of disc profiling on yourselves, on your employees? On only you. I think we generally do it on ourselves because we're interested in wanting to know how we tick and things like
I've
that.
been meaning to do it on my staff.
Yeah. If you haven't done it on yourself, we're going to do it today. But also, what I hope you take from today is the value you'll get from doing it with your staff also. We usually have 4 key communication styles, and some people call it personality traits and things like that. Blues. Blues tend to be what I call steady people. Blues will want to have fun, they'll be expressive, they'll be talkative, emotion and relationship driven, sometimes can be disorganised, need approval and recognition. When you're at work with a blue, you'll tend to see things like enthusiastic, energetic, motivating and inspiring to others, strong communicators. From a weakness point of view, easily distracted and undisciplined, would rather talk than act and can forget obligations. All right? We'll go through this in a bit more detail, and when you get your disc profile, and don't worry about it because all of these things will be broken down on there for you. In fact, I think I have put it in your booklet, possibly. I'm sure I have. Red styles, what I call, what the industry calls an influencer. Power plays. I imagine we'll have lots of reds in here. Want to get down to business. No time for pointless emotion. Determined finishers, even when they may be wrong. Can be short-tempered. Not good with small talk. At work, natural goal setters. Focused and decisive. Sees the whole picture. Thrives on competition. Weaknesses, they can lack tolerance for mistake and alternative views. Has little time for detail. Can be rude and tactless. And are very demanding of others, both in effort and loyalty. Does anybody know what John is? At this point. We actually did this. I did this with a group of managers some time ago, actually. And at the time, I had myself, I think the financial director, and John. And we did a bit of profiling, and I asked them all to guess what we were, and put them in teams and things, and kind of John they picked immediately, and I think he was a bit like, oh right, okay, that's all I'm not. I think he said himself, I'm not even rude and tactless, I'm just being rude and tactless. So some people, and what you tend to find, like with anything, you'll have a dominant style and then you'll have a secondary style, and sometimes that would be quite close together. Gold, conscientious. Helpers, listeners, non-confrontational, touchy-feely, don't like the limelight, flexible, like to take their time with things, not particularly proactive. At work, you'll see that they're competent and steady. They avoid conflict and they'll mediate problems. Good under pressure, finds the easy way. Their weaknesses can be they're not goal-orientated, they lack self-motivation, hard to get moving and resent being pushed, and can be deemed lazy. Some of these are brutal, but can be deemed lazy and careless. Final one is green, the dominant style. Needs to know what's right before acting. Risk averse. Careful with finances. They like perfection. They live for structure and schedules. And at work, you'll expect them to be an absolute perfectionist. They'll be analytical. They'll need to finish what's being started, and they'll be economical. Can we think of a perfect role within our business for a green? Counts. Perfect. Weaknesses. Not people orientated, hesitant to start, too much planning involved, prefer analysis to work, and hard to please, standards are often too high. Now if you think about these things, you could actually start thinking about this at very recruitment stage, because ideally if you want an employee who's going to be a perfectionist, detail conscious, analytical, and actually you can live with them being not people orientated because they're probably going to be stuck in an office doing figures all day long for you. Perfect. We want to know we've got a green. You could even start introducing it into part of your recruitment if you actually felt that there was going to give you benefit there. Does everybody if you haven't already done this with yourself, do you have a feeling already of what you might be just off listening to that? Yeah. I know when we did mine, the managers seemed to struggle with what I was, which was interesting. And I think the reason they struggled with it is a lot of the weaknesses, they would go, well, you're not that, and you don't do that. And what I was saying is, I actually do. No, that's what I want to do, but I've now understood that about myself, so I've put some things in place to make sure I don't do that. Looking at what you've seen so far, out of curiosity, what would you expect me to be in terms of communication?
Blue.
Who said blue? Well done, Holly. Absolutely blue through and through. So one of the things that we said about blues were, we'll go all the way back, was easily distracted and undisciplined. That is something that I can definitely be. But by managing, now understanding and managing, you wouldn't believe what's in my diary. I have so much stuff in my diary because I can be distracted and undisciplined. The way that I get around that is using my diary a lot and trying to make, when something pings up on my phone and I'm meant to be there, right, okay, I need to move on and I need to do that. Would rather talk than act. I am definitely a talker through issues. Sometimes that's great because I'm a good communicator. Sometimes not though, because sometimes actually I just need to act. What you'll find with John is he doesn't talk about very often, he'll make a decision and he'll act on it immediately. Whereas I might talk things through a lot more than I should and can forget obligations. John would probably agree with that sometimes in terms of meetings and things like that. In the past I've had to have me ask it back, I was busy doing that and was dead enthusiastic.
You were doing other stuff, it wasn't as if you weren't doing anything.
Yeah,
You were
yeah.
just very, very busy.
Because what you find is I'm dead enthusiastic and dead energetic, so if I get involved in something, you will get 100% passion from us all of the time, and I'll put my heart and soul into it. But what that can lead to is sometimes forgetting other obligations. So I think at the point we understand our own styles, we can start to manage some of our weaknesses, because we can absolutely do that. And part of some of the things that we talked about there is emotional relationship driven, need for approval and recognition. That's probably why, and I struggled with those difficult conversations, because those difficult conversations don't lead to approval, do they, a lot of the time? You've got to get that out longer term. So I think it's important to understand your communication style. More importantly, I think it's important to understand your staff's communication style. And you can often use this at the point, what you'll find is a lot of your staff haven't done this profiling, and what you'll find is they'll start to realise things about themselves. And what you can use is, if somebody was a blue and you find that they're dead passionate about what they do and they're always dead good within, if you ask them to do something, they'll do it, but they might forget some other things. You can talk to them about, it's in your nature to do that. We've looked at that, we've profiled you, and it's in your nature to do that. So what we're going to do to manage that, so it can really help you with some of your management, basically. What are the benefits of knowing somebody's communication style?
You know how to communicate with them.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Another benefit?
You can better understand why they've done something in a certain way.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And also, you can get them to understand why they've done something in a certain way, and you can get them to understand that they're probably going to do it again, so how do we avoid that happening? I know when I did my profiling, I've become a lot more, I'm definitely not a red style, but I've definitely seen that increase, and that I had far more reds than I did the first time I did it. And it's not that I've changed as a person, I've managed my weaknesses so much so it's become habit and routine that now I'm starting to make different decisions. The messages that I'm sending myself in terms of what I need to do next are different now because of the new habits and routines that I've created for myself. The reason I've done that is I've seen the rewards of changing some of those things. So it allows you to know when to adjust your communication to get a better result. John was a perfect example of this. I understood now when I went to him with an idea and I was super passionate and enthusiastic and things, he'd be interested for all of 5 minutes and then he'd want to just wind us up and go, right, tell us what I'm going to get. Now I go to him and go, do you want us to earn more money in this area? Yeah, got me interest, okay. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do that, that and that. Right, struggles with it. Now if I went to him with fluff and go, I was thinking what we could do is, and I think that'll do that, he'd be more hesitant to let us run with it because he's direct, and I haven't been very direct with him, and because of that I've lost him a little bit and he's not got the confidence in what I'm going to do. If I do that very quickly and go, I'm going to do that, it'll give us that result, I'm going to run with it, I'll come back to you in a month, yeah? Oh yeah, okay, do that then. Brilliant. So once I understood John's communication style, as well as allowing it to manage staff, it allows you to manage upwards and communicate in a way that you've got to get the best out of situations. Yes.
Have you ever used this technique between colleagues, so that colleague A would mark colleague B,
No, I haven't.
and colleague B would mark colleague A, and compared how they saw themselves and how their work colleagues saw them?
So do you mean you fill that out as if you were me?
Yeah, say you're asking me today to fill this out,
Yeah.
and say you knew me for a while,
Mhm.
and you filled it out as you perceive me,
All right.
and then
okay.
compare the answers.
I've never tried doing
So
that.
we've got two sales negotiators now.
Mhm.
If we gave one sales negotiator the matrix and said, fill that out, what kind of communicator are you? Then we gave her colleague and said, fill that out and let's see what kind of, how do you think Claire is? And then compare the answers. Do you think it might also be able to identify areas of conflict?
There is an actual test for this
Right.
that you can do, but it is you are extremely constrained on what you can and cannot have in it
Right.
because of the HR reason.
Yeah, yeah,
You can't
understandably.
basically go, I'm just going to circle all these, she's awkward, she's a pain in the ass, she's
Yeah.
this, she's that, she's that,
Yeah.
and then go, Claire, this is what James thinks about you.
Well, if you think about it, you could probably do something similar to this to understand that you think that this person's these things, but actually they communicate like this. So what you'll find is they will be upset by some of the feedback that you're giving them because they do take it to heart. So you will see the passion in it, but don't let that put you off. Just understand that you might need a slightly different approach because with the blue communicator, if John was to be really direct and really harsh with me, I wouldn't take that very well because I do get upset when people say things that I do get upset with too much of a direct approach. Naturally, that's what I would do. So that wouldn't be the way you get the best out of me.
But that's what I mean, in terms of, that's great with you and John where you've got a high level of trust,
Yeah.
where you could probably do this exercise and do it. And that's where you're doing it with your managers. But what about manager to manager?
Possibly.
Does each manager, I mean, is Tony a blue and Holly a red,
We've done
and they
it.
don't realise they
No,
are to
we've
each
done it
other?
as a group of managers. So I did this with them as a group of managers, and we did it kind of at senior management level. So they all understood and kind of went, "Oh yeah, Tony, you do that." Actually, Tony wasn't around when we did this. It was many moons ago. It would, yeah, definitely worth doing now. But yes, I think you're right. What we haven't done is, and I was definitely valuing it, is the managers take it back, I guess, and allow their team, together to do it. We've done it in one-to-one format to kind of understand the relationship between manager and staff. But you're right, there'd definitely be value in looking at it across the board, I guess, to get a better understanding of your colleagues, no doubt
But
about
they'd
it.
have to grade themselves, they couldn't grade
Yes.
couldn't grade your colleague because
Yeah.
it does cross the line.
Yes, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it would cause problems, and I don't want well.
There is a, I can't think what it
There
is,
must
but
be a
there is,
test you
there
could
is
do.
an actual one that you can do, but you can't disclose the information to the other person, so
Right.
we would get what Claire said about Jane,
Right.
but we would never be able to say to
So you
Jane,
just
this
get the
is what
result,
Claire
not the
said.
depth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, which is fine, isn't
Yeah.
it?
But then
Yeah.
that would help you with your training and your role.
Compatibility and
Yeah.
things like that.
Because if
Yeah,
you
so
knew
you
them,
could- Yeah, that you alter your coaching and training without actually telling them that that's why.
yeah.
Definitely. No, sounds good. Benefits allowing you to know when to adjust your communication style, allows your staff to understand their weaknesses and manage them, because you not just tell them their weaknesses, that will be their weaknesses, it's off the back of this, proven. And it allows you to understand strengths and also play to them. So if you've got somebody who's particularly enthusiastic, what you're probably going to want to do is use somebody like that in a coaching session. We all like that key person. If I've done a coaching session with a group of people, it's nice to have that person who you know is going to go put the hand up because they create a vibe in the room. They start to get people talking. Somebody gets sick of them being the same people that put the hand up and they start wanting to interject. So you can play to people's strengths as well once you know what they are. Your next task is to complete the communication questionnaire. And has everyone got one now, John? Perfect. So we give, 10 minutes for
This
that?
one, yeah, what colour is your personality?